Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT EMEA power rankings, just going through all 11 teams, putting them into these tiers, just like I did with Americas in my last video that came out probably a couple days ago as of when I'm uploading this. It's coming out tomorrow as of when I'm recording. Um, but yeah, go make sure to check out that video, all that kind of stuff. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoy. Let me know what you would rank these teams as in the comments below. And yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so we're going to start down here at our bad tier, just like we did in Americas. Um, and we're going to be starting here with Team Heretics. Now, I'm going to preface this by this isn't an awful roster. I'm sorry, I'm pulling up their VLR page at the same time. Like, I have some confidence in Reigns, Benji Fishy, and Woot. Um, and even Patatek as well when Woot isn't able to play. But I just think the structure on this team is kind of getting carried over from last year, and it was not good then. Woot's calling, I mean, not Woot's calling, Boo's calling, it just isn't good. I mean, kind of in tandem with that. Mini Boo is genuinely one of the worst duelist players I've watched at a tier 1 level. He enters on Jet and just doesn't clear shit, pretty much. Like, that's all it is. Reigns isn't incredible, but I think he'll be fine, as I said. Benji, same idea. Um, I don't really have a ton of confidence in him. Wu, I think, will be a fairly good player for this team and probably a bright spot once he's able to get in. And honestly, same with Patatek. I think they're going to have a hard time subbing Patatek out at the end of the split. And honestly, there's a good chance that, like, Mini Boo gets subbed out and Woot comes in to play the duelist instead of him. And I know Woot hasn't really played a ton of, like, Jet stuff um, and stuff like that. But, like, I thought he was playing, like, the Chamber for them in this. Believe. I thought it was him that was playing the chamber. Maybe I'm just wrong. Yeah, he played the chamber. He was rolling on chamber on sunset. So I think maybe putting him on more of an op role could be a solution there. But again, just not a good team. Not a team that I have confidence in to kind of improve into the season. But again, like this bottom tier, you can interchange this in any order, and I'm not going to really argue with you. Next up is BBL, who I have even less confidence will be good. Um, like I think like Heretics has a higher chance of being a good team, like maybe getting into these tiers throughout the season, um, rather than BBL, who I think will just be stuck in maybe these two tiers, like at the very bottom of this, maybe very top of bad. Um, but I think they have a higher floor than Heretics, but a much lower ceiling. I don't really see this team doing too much. Um, like I thought Elite was okay. Aslan's been fine in the past. Pora is not that great of an IGL, but maybe could be better with better pieces here. Um, like he's a fairly well. Like I knew of Pora before this, so like before I had watched him, so it's not like the worst thing. Kushner is one of my lowest rated duelists, even though he's not bad. Um, Brave, I think, is a fairly good smokes player in EMEA. Um, and yeah, I don't have a ton of confidence in this team at all, but I don't think they'll be like if you told me BBL was the best team in this tier, um, I wouldn't be shocked. And next up, we have Koi, who has recently just made a roster change. They have subbed out Trex for Gerbino, which personally I think kind of lowers the ceiling of this roster, but also raises the floor. It brings in like a real smokes player here that isn't just Starzo playing the Omen and then Trex playing the Astra, and then figuring out who the hell is going to play Brimstone. Like they just have one set guy to play that role, which makes it a lot better. But you are removing Trex here, who is a much better overall player. I'd rather them just have cut Starzo and figured out who's going to IGL because he cannot IGL. He's proven that over multiple rosters, and yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see how this how like Starzo could lead a team to actually being good. like not in this tier. Um, I think, you know, the thing is, these three teams are so bad that every time I talk about that, I talk myself into moving them down. So like, I just can't like seriously like. I'm not gonna change this. Like, you can put these three in any order you want. I really don't care. Um, but yeah, they're all just terrible teams. I don't really know what else to say. Camo is okay at best. He's like an average duelist player. Shadow is an okay flex player. Shados is a good player, but not good on the role that he's playing. Starzo is a terrible IGL, but a decent individual player. And then um, Rubinho is actually a fairly good smokes player, but just I don't think is going to be able to carry a team. And I think that'll just lead to Koi just not being a good team. Um, Things I kind of talked myself into moving BBL up, but between moving BBL or going to start talking about Koi, I was considering moving BBL down. So I think I'm just going to keep it where it is. Um, and then actually, while I've been talking about this, I think I'm going to move the other team that I was going to put in this tier up to the next tier, just because these three teams are so bad, and I think the other team has a chance of being okay. All right, and now moving on to our could sneak into playoffs tier, where we're going to be moving Gentlemates up from the bad tier, just because I think they'll be better than these three bottom teams. I think maybe one of them could pass them up, like maybe Koi, have like Camo start playing better, or Heretics like get Woot in there and he starts popping off and shit like that. I could see that. But I don't know. This team just isn't good. Like I know they went on a run in Ascension, but you can't tell me they were the better team than Apex. I think they're getting really overrated by the community just because like G2 is getting heavily rated in Americas and Leeds getting heavily rated in Pacific, and people are like, "Oh, the Ascension team's gonna be good in the EMEA too." I can't see that. But I do think they'll be clearly better than these three teams, so I kind of have to put them in this tier, even if I don't think they're going to be like a big upset team. I think they could probably take some games off some good teams. Like, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but like some of these like mid-table teams, I think they could take some games off them and maybe sneak into playoffs, but probably not. And then the other team that I think is much more likely to sneak into playoffs, and I do think is the better team, is Carmine Corps. We're going to have both our French teams in here. I just think there's a lot of upside with this roster that the other four teams here don't have. Um, Obviously, their floor is lower than Gentlemates and probably even lower than BBL. But from what they've shown, I think they're going to be a fairly good team. Like, I don't love Narrate as a player. I think he's a little bit overrated, but he's still very good. Thomasy and Martine are fucking goated. Shin is very good. Magnum, I don't have full faith in as an IGL, but is a fairly good Sentinel player, even though he's not going to be playing that here. He's going to be playing the Initiator, which kind of makes these teams roles a little bit weird, having three duelist players, even you could argue a fourth in Shin. Just trying to figure out the roles, but teams have tried this in the past. It's not my favorite roster building strategy, as I've talked about on this channel before in my EMEA grades video. If you're more interested in me diving into that a little bit deeper, go check that video out. I'll probably have it in the end screen of this video, so you can do that after. And also, just Aang as a coach here, I kind of believe in. Obviously, he's been around the world as a coach. Like, I think he was like assistant coaching TSM or something like that. They weren't that good. And yeah, he's just been like kind of in and out of teams since Gambit, but I still have faith. I think he's a fairly good coach from what I know. And yeah, I think this team will compete this year. I just don't know if they're going to be able to make it into playoffs over these maybe more stable and more proven teams. All right, next up onto these teams that should be able to make the playoffs here in EMEA. We're going to start with Liquid at number 6. I don't know if this team is underrated or overrated, honestly. Like, I like a lot of their players. Let me pull up their VLR page just so I don't forget anybody. Team Liquid. Enzo, I think, is a good IGL, but probably a little bit overrated. I think he was the hottest prospect in EMEA. I mean, he was probably the most sought after free agent, in my opinion. Um, but even then, like, if you're rating him against the world and even some of these top IGLs in EMEA, I don't think he's fully there yet. Obviously, he could develop more with better players here and become a better IGL, but again, I'm not super sold on him. Some of the comps they're running are like super basic. Like this team just feels like it's going to be a watered down Fnatic, even though I do like a lot of their players, like Yampy. I've liked on Flex. Nats, he's going to get. I mean, he's going to stay on the Sentinel here. Like, I don't think there's um, too much wrong with that. Even though I've liked him on Smokes in the past, and I think you probably could have picked up a better Sentinel player here in EMEA, but they did end up picking up Mystic, who was one of my my favorite free agent signings. I thought he would. I think he's the best Smokes player in EMEA immediately, um, and he is my goat. So I don't think you're really gonna argue that Nats should be playing the Smokes over Mystic here. I just think maybe you could have gotten more value other places with that. Let Mystic go somewhere else, but you also kind of get this Apex core here that's going to be fairly solid with Kiko. I don't think Kiko's the best duelist. I don't think he's going to carry this team, but I think he's going to be very solid in his role. Maybe think kind of like what Defo was for Gambit, even though this team's not going to be that good. Um, I just think he'll be very solid here and not really have too many terrible games unless they're going up against teams like your Fanatics of the world, um, your Energies, your Leviathans, your Paper Rexes. I think he would kind of just get railed if they played Paper Rex, but overall, this team should be able to make playoffs and kind of um, build into next year a little bit. And then the other team we have in here is Giants, who I have a little bit more faith in that can like go up from here, but these are definitely the two like most mid teams and teams that I expect to be very stable throughout the year. Maybe Giants less so, just because of Redgar and his calling style and stuff. But from what I've watched of this team in the offseason, I think they've looked okay. I think Nookie's going to be staying on the Sentinel here, even though he was playing like a lot of Duelist and stuff. It was like he was playing the Raze instead of Killjoy. It's like they told him like, oh yeah, we're going to play the basic Haven comp, but instead of playing locking in Killjoy, he locked in Raze. Um, it was just weird. Um, but I still think this team's going to be very good. Um, they got wait, hold on. Vitinho, who I have rated as my third best duelist player in EMEA. I think he's very solid. I don't think he's going to really perform in big games against great teams, but he'll get you to those big games by performing very, very well in them. You got Cloud, who will perform in those big games. He's an incredible initiator player, kind of similar in style to Leo. Definitely not as good, but definitely like a mini Leo of sorts, if that makes sense. Nookie, I think, is a very good Sentinel player in terms of just general fragging and that kind of stuff. Obviously, his like setups aren't that fleshed out. He's kind of like Alfier in a way. I mean, he's again a mini Alfier. I feel like this team's very similar to Fnatic in that way. Um, Hoodie, I think, is an okay flex player. Nothing special there, but nothing that's gonna be terrible for you. And then Redgar is what a lot of this roster hinges on. You're taking out Rhyme and putting in Redgar in the IGL slot. And as long as he's able to IGL kind of the way he did in EMEA, like um, the regular season for Liquid and playoffs, I think this team should be fairly solid. Obviously, there's going to be some bad games from Redgar, but overall, I think he'll end up leading this team fairly well. All right, and then next up, we'll do our final two tiers here, both in a row, unless I have to stop in the middle of a couple of them. But at number 4 here, we're going to put in Vitality. Now, this team just made a roster change, bringing in Trex for Destrian. I think that was a good move overall. Like, I'm not super high up on it, but I'm not down on it either. Like, I think Trex just gives this team even higher of a ceiling. I think this team, I mean, as the tier says, has potential to win EMEA. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to like win international events this year, but I think they're going to be able to build off this year into the future and kind of just keep getting better. Runner, I think, is an incredible talent. His jet is some of the best in the world. His raise is also very good, but I think he's super like op heavy to the point where it's not gonna um, like his raise can't be that good just because like Jet is more of an opping style duelist. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but like he is more of a Jet player than a raise player, but his raise is very very good. You got Safe, who is going to be playing mainly Sentinel here, from what I know. Maybe he transitioned to more of like a flex thing like Trex is doing, or like I think Trex is going to be doing, or like what Destrian was doing. Um, but overall, I still believe in Safe no matter what he's playing, even though I really feel like a team should have just picked him up to play Duelist, man. Like, he was so good on that last year that, and anytime they swapped him off, he was kind of mid as a player. So I feel like swapping him off of it, and like him swapping off of it willingly, is kind of weird to me. I don't get why some of these players do it, like Safe, Leaf. Um, I mean, those are just two players that I know of that do that. But like, there's players that are like such good duelist players and like refuse to play it sometimes, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, just play the role that you're good at. Kix is going to be playing the initiator here. Now he was more of a flex player, I thought. So playing like a main initiator here, not playing the Sova as much. Maybe Trex is just going to come in and play the Sova when they need to, and everything's going to be fine. Because that's what Destrian was playing, but I'm not sure exactly the level of Sova play this team is going to get, but the KO play will be very good. That's what I know. Again, as I said, Trex just adds more of a ceiling to this roster. He's very good. Can play a lot of different roles and stuff. I'm excited to see him in this team. Hopefully they play another event, but I don't think that's going to end up happening, just because there's not too many events left, especially EMEA ones. And then Sender as the IGL. I really liked Sender as a Sentinel player last year. I thought he was extremely good on that role, but moving over to Smokes here, I think he's a little bit worse, but nothing like terrible. And I'm still not fully there on his IGLing. I think it's fine, but it's not gonna go win you events or anything. I think it's probably this team's biggest weakness, but it's not like gonna hold this team back from making international events, potentially winning EMEA. Like if the calling goes on a hot streak, I think they'll have a very very good chance at winning EMEA, probably over some of these teams above them as well. But now we'll move on. Talked about Vitality enough. Onto Navi, who I'm barely going to talk about here, just because I mean there's not a ton to talk about. They kept the same four from last year in Sagetsu, Shao, Zipan, and Angel. Everybody knows they're incredible. Obviously, Angel gets a little bit of hate for how he plays in terms of the Omen TPs and shit. And I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with him running it down on Sova, on Pearl specifically, him not being able to play Astra. Those are my main issues with him. Sometimes his calling isn't great, but usually it's fine. Like, I have him rated just as a caller here as my second best IGL in EMEA. Obviously, everybody knows who number one is. But yeah, I think this team will solidly be at worst the fourth best team in EMEA all year. Sagetsu is incredible. Shao is incredible. Zipan is incredible. Angel's a very good IGL. Artist is going to give more of a floor and like more stability to this team. He's not going to be playing the Yoru shit that they were playing um, in all of EMEA regular season this year. I think they'll be better during that time span as well, and just keep getting more reps on what they're good at. Hopefully, obviously, there's still going to be some Navi trolling because that's just how they work. But yeah, I think this team will be very solid. And then the last team in this tier is Foot. And then obviously Fnatic is going to be in our top tier. I think Fnatic deserves to be in a tier of their own. And I also just don't know how much I trust these teams to be able to win international events in the second tier. But we'll talk about Foot first, bringing in CNET and Yediche. Probably the biggest upgrades of any roster. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. Maybe you could argue like John Cutie coming in on Sentinels, um, Aspas coming in on Leviathan, maybe even Calm coming in instead of Noswar as well. Any player like that. I'm trying to think as well. Maybe Boostio and EU on 100 Thieves. I think that could also be in there. But just what amazing signings here. Yedije, I think, has potential to maybe not this year, but eventually be the best Sentinel player in all of EMEA, just because his mechanics are there with Alfier. They're maybe not like on his level and probably never will be, to be honest. But the way he plays Sentinel, um, like just his instincts, I've said this so many times talking about him, are just so good. He's such a good lurker. He's such a good side anchor, all that kind of stuff that you need to be a Sentinel player. I think he'll pass up Nats this year, probably pass up Sugetsu as well, and get into that top tier of Sentinel in EMEA and contend with Alfier. And maybe teams should start looking at more Turkish Sentinel players because holy shit, man. Um, these guys are good. CNED coming back to a full Turkish team. His raise has seemingly got better. His jet is still his jet. His op is still his op. Like CNED is still the same player that he was. Even while he was playing on Navi, I thought his op was very good on Navi. It's just the way they played around him was really bad. Um, and I think Foot is already playing around him better than Navi ever did. Mr. Fallen is a very solid IGL. I don't believe that he's one of the best IGLs in the world. I don't remember where I ranked him when I did world player rankings, but he'd probably be that in that like somewhere between like 9 and 12. I know those are like really random numbers, but like somewhere in that range where he's like solid, but you're not like super confident. Krax is continuing to expand his agent pool. I really like him as a player. If he can do that, his mechanics are incredible. As I've listed out with some of these other players, I think this team has the second highest ceiling. If Vitality can really figure out their roles, I think they can be better. And I also I think Captain is one of the best smokes players in all of EMEA. I don't know. Every tournament that I've watched him in this offseason, he's been so good. Hopefully, he can continue that form into other tournaments. I didn't really think he was this good coming into the offseason, but maybe he's just improved a lot. Maybe it's offseason events and it doesn't really mean too much, but yeah, he's been very good. And then Fnatic at our top spot. I mean, I don't really have to say too much. Yeah, they lost many. Don't care. He's still going to be their assistant coach. But like, I have Durka is my highest rated duelist. Alfier is my highest rated sentinel. Leo is my highest rated initiator. Chronicle is my highest rated flex. And Boaster is my highest rated IGL and third highest rated smokes player just as an individual. In that top tier with Mystic and Ada Captain. I just think this team is by far the best team in EMEA. I think they have contention at the top of the world with other teams like NRG. I'll spoil it. I'll just say NRG. I think that is their biggest competition. Just because NRG has Demon 1 is the best duelist. Crashies is the best initiator. Ethan is the best flex. Marv is the best smokes. The only thing they don't have is the best IGL. But I think they'll be fine. Like Victor is in that tier of like middle sentinel players, and I think we'll probably get better as the year goes on. And I don't know. I think these teams should be just neck and neck. Two super teams going at it. Fnatic maybe getting a little bit worse with the coaching, and like some of the shit after champs was so weird to me. Just the way they handled it, I did not like that. And overall, I don't know. I just think this team, you have to rate them in a tier of their own in EMEA just because they have the best player in every role. But yeah, that is my power rankings list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I think this one should be a little less standard as my Americas one, so I'm sure I'm gonna get some comments on how bad my list was. I think overall my top 6 teams was fair. I think this is generally standard. Maybe the liquid placement's going to be too low for people. And I think some people are going to believe in like maybe 1 or 2 of these teams at the bottom and not like the placement of them. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, go check out my off-season grades videos. Stay tuned for my other power rankings videos. I'll be doing world power rankings after I finish my Pacific video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Go watch my Americas video as well. Power rankings. That one was fairly bog standard as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.